On this week's show, it is time to turn that frown upside down. Because Michael Brown, hey, that rhymed, is here to tell us all about My Beautiful Paper Smile, a psychological horror game unlike any other you have seen, or at least we have seen. Speaking of things that make us go yikes, Uncharted Portals, an upcoming 2D platformer, has been accused of ripping off Cuphead. Yikes. And finally, the Hype Zone reminds us there was a franchise here, but now it's gone. This is Nintendo Dual Screens, episode 120. Hello everybody, welcome to Nintendo Dual Screens episode 120 for the week of October 14th, 2019, sponsored by MeltedPins.com. I am one of your hosts, Stephen Fontana, and with me, as always, each and every week, it never fails, he is Andy Esemekis. How are you, Andy?
You call that game Uncharted Portals? It's Enchanted Portals.
Did I? I don't know.
Yes.
Dyslexia man strikes again. Here I come to Dave the Say. Means Dyslexia man is on his way. And with us is Michael Brown. How are you, Michael?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah.
You have no idea what you got yourself into, do you? But we'll get you there eventually. We'll get you there.
I'll just keep smiling. It'll be all right.
Oh,
no.
I like it. Bazinga. Love it. Love it. All right, for those of you that are new to Nintendo Dual Screens podcast, this is an interview show where Andy and I bring on an industry guest to talk about the indies and Nintendo's past, present, and future. Nintendo Dual Screens posts each and every Monday for your listening pleasure on your podcast service of choice, including YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and of course on dualscreens.com. Please consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts as it helps the show out tremendously. No new reviews this week. I'm disappointed in all of you. You could all go to hell. Moving on. You can also support us on Patreon. If you don't want to give us a review, you can give us your money instead. Go to patreon.com/NDSPodcast. Just like our Patreon producer, the demigod himself, he is Alex Gonzalez. Alex, thank you so much for all of your support. We cannot continue to grow without it. Folks, we have a survey up on our Patreon right now to give us thoughts on the Patreon. Even if you're not a Patreon member, there are questions specifically directed to you. Like, what can we do to get you to be a Patreon? What kind of rewards do you like? What kind of content do you like? Stuff like that. So if you go to patreon.com/NDSPodcast, you can help us out. And remember, $1 gets you a bonus episode each and every month, which you vote the topic, and it also gets you into our VIP Discord channel. All right. That's all the rigmarole. So before we get into the lead story, before we get into the Nintendo News Report, Andy, it is time for everybody's favorite segment. It's time for the Nindies of the week. Andy, Mistover is upon us, my friend.
Are you playing Mistover like as much
Now,
as I am?
Yeah, I am. Now, here's my thing. Does it really count as an indie? It's kind of a big company.
Well, I have a different game I want to talk about.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna still go with it because
Sure.
it's definitely in that same vein. Michael, I don't know if you've heard of Mistover, but
I
it's
have.
You have. Excellent. So, yeah, I started it a couple of days ago. On the 10th, actually, got the code a day before it came out. I did the first play, which you could see on dualscreens.com or youtube.com, and search Nintendo Dual Screens on YouTube. You can see that video. It's better than I remember, and I think that's because I didn't realize that like the production value of all the cut scenes and like all of that stuff. Because when we were at PAX East, you're the one that played it. I looked over your shoulder and took some B video, some B-roll, and yeah, I'm actually really surprised with it. It is a little bit difficult. Even on normal, I'm having some difficulty like staying alive 3 or 4 battles into a dungeon. I don't know if it's just the party configuration that I have right now, if I'm not really moving them around correctly or making the best use out of their abilities, but I'm definitely getting better, and I'm thinking I'm gonna do a clean wipe because there's a lot of mechanics that I learned after the first dungeon that I kind of want to go back in and see if I can clear that first dungeon with like a fresh start. But I'm really enjoying it. So essentially, what it is a dungeon diving RPG where each side of the battlefield has a little grid, and you could move your party members around that grid. And depending on where they are, they either get abilities that offensive abilities, or in some cases you get better defensive abilities. Like your healer, if it's in the back row, can heal everybody in front. But if it's in the front row, it doesn't really have any healing abilities because it needs to be able to cast it in front of them. So there's a lot of movement, a lot of stuff like that. I'm really enjoying it. What are your thoughts, Andy?
Yeah, it was just fun playing it after all these months. We first played at PAX East and we loved it, and then just having it in my hands for the first time since, it was like, oh, hello, old friend, you came back to me. And it's just as difficult, and it requires a lot of patience because the battles take a long time to get
They
through.
do. They really do. Like, I feel like the enemies have a lot of health
Yeah.
early on, and they do a lot of damage. Which I guess is okay as long as your healer is alive. You could always heal. I feel like I'm not sure if I'm missing something like a mana system or something like that, but I feel like if she's in the right position, I could almost always heal with her.
Mhm.
So I don't know if it's just like the positioning, or if it's she's getting enough like points to use her magic. I'm not sure exactly how that works just yet, but the more I play, I'll be able to figure out those systems a little bit better.
Mhm.
Michael, you said that you were aware of the game. What are your thoughts? Have you played it? Or just kind of keep an eye on it?
Yeah, I briefly played it when it came out 2 days ago, and I thought I liked it. I mean, I like the art style. I mean, RPGs are right up my alley anyway. I'm a massive RPG fan. It's actually very similar to a game that we worked on a couple of years ago called Mad Crown. It's a very similar style in terms of the art style is very similar, and the overall mechanics in terms of the dungeon, how you go around the dungeon and then get transported into turn-based combat. Is very, very similar. But with the company that produced it, it doesn't surprise me that it's similar because they're both companies are from Asia, and so they tend to do very similar art styles and very similar inspirations, and try to look for the same audiences. So I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was. I think there was a couple of problems in the overall execution, but I think it was pretty well done.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of issues that I have. Like one of the basic things is that difficulty spike, especially right in the beginning. I'm playing on normal, and it feels like if you're trying to learn the mechanics of the game and what exploring a dungeon means, and then they give you the exit to the dungeon, and then you're kind of getting your ass kicked by your third battle, where that exit seems very enticing. It seems like almost like, yeah, I need to get out of here. And then you're punished for doing that. So I think that's kind of a weird design choice, especially in the first dungeon itself. And then as you move on, you're like, okay, I'm not going to go for the exit as soon as I find it. I got to go to the exit when I absolutely have to. So,
well, it is a roguelike too, which is, it's going to be a little more difficult than your standard RPG.
Yeah, I wish you could tell a little bit more. I wish like the monsters on the map were representative of the monsters you'd actually fight, as opposed to just like their type.
Right.
That would be really a much better thing, because then you could say, "Hey, I fought these worms 3 or 4 times. I know I could beat them. I have the right formation. I'll be fine against them." And then you don't have to worry about them. But then like, maybe you come across those. There's ones that have like these piercing javelin attacks that are a pain in the ass, that maybe you'd want to avoid them, stuff like that. All right, Andy, so what's your Nindy of the week?
I'm playing a scarily cute Metroidvania game called SpookyGhosts.com.
Interesting.
It is so adorable. It's a simple sprite-based platformer. And you just go around shooting ghosts and goblins and spooky things. And that's all there is to it.
I like what I'm hearing.
It's really simple. There's no frills, no bells, no whistles. Even the sprite work is super simple. It's, I would say, less detail than an NES game, in a sense.
Okay.
It's that basic. But it's just so cute and fun. it's good to have a game that you can just turn off your mind and enjoy for like a little burst here and there.
Sure.
Because I've been playing. I just finished Link's Awakening like the other day, like full finished it. Which, by the way,
Nice.
that game has it keeps track of all your heart containers, like where on the map you found them.
Uh-huh.
So when you say, "Oh, I'm missing 4 containers," I'll consult this guide. You know exactly where they are, the ones you're missing. It's the most amazing thing. I was like, "Hallelujah!"
Quality of life, man.
Yeah, I finally finished that game. Put it to bed. That's funny. It's called Link's Awakening. And I played some Mist
I see
Over,
what
and I
you did
played SpookyGhost.com, which again, it's a cute little fun platformer. It's like, I love games like that. That's all there is to it. It's just super cute. It's super cheap. It's on the eShop right now, and I recommend it.
I also played a Knight's Quest, which also came out last week.
Oh yeah, speaking of Zelda.
Yeah, speaking of it's a little bit, it's less Zelda than I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
It has more open world kind of Metroid-ish feel to it, where I mean, I guess that is Zelda 2, where you kind of get a power that unlocks a little new area of the map, but there's a lot of platforming in that game. I don't want to get too far into it, but what I will say is everything except sound design and combat is really well done. The sound design, and it is married to the combat. The combat feels like you're just flailing like an idiot, and there's no like tactical feedback of what you're doing. Like you don't feel the combat at all.
You should save that for Medieval coming later this month on PlayStation 4.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of similar. Yeah, you got your lock on, you dodge and stuff, but like when you're hitting, you just don't hear any real sound effects. You don't hear any grunts or any like actual fighting. It's like
so
they were almost there
with combat, basically.
There's no weight. I feel like what they really needed was just maybe a few more months of polish where they really could have added some of that stuff to it, but I digress. It's not my indie of the week.
Right.
But yeah. Michael, are you playing any new fun indies?
No, not really. On Switch particularly, I've still been playing with Fire Emblem for the most part, and trying to like the game more than I actually do. Like everyone's like, "Oh, how could you not like this amazing game?" I'm like, "Yeah, plot holes. That's my biggest issue."
My biggest issue with games like that is the time commitment. Once I realize how much time I actually have to put into the thing, it turns me off completely. I almost wish they would say, "Oh yeah, it's an 8-hour adventure," so that I could just get sucked in and not want it to end, and then 100 hours later, I'm like, "Oh yeah, now I can do my second playthrough. Yay!"
It's 80 hours per house, Steven.
I know, Andy.
So wait, Michael, you're playing it just to see if you can like it, or you're trying to like it?
Well, I went through the game with the first house. I went through the game with Blue Lions, and then and I liked the Blue Lions storyline for the most part. But then the game kind of ended on that storyline, and I was like, "Oh, there's like millions of things that just were never mentioned ever again in that storyline." And then I played the Golden Eagles, and then I'm on the third house now, and it's just the way that they've done it. I think the idea behind it was sound. I think the execution of the idea was there's somewhat to be desired in how, yes, you experience different parts of the main story because of you, depending on which house you play, but the storylines inherent of each house means that at a certain point, like about halfway through the storyline of each house, you basically wipe out the other houses, and so like all the other dark enemies and mysterious forces that are going on, in some of them they get like mentioned and continue on with the story, and then but like with the Blue Lions one, it's like, oh, we're just never going to mention those really big bad guys ever again, and everything's okay. It's just a really it makes the whole experience feel very disjointed. And what I think they should have done is probably included very separate storylines for each house, because they get different endings anyway. Mm-hmm. So why not just resolve everything slightly different, and go through, make sure that the guys who are actually the bad guys get seen in every single storyline, rather than going through it. Because I mean, the Blue Lions one in particular, it's like the game, you finish the storyline and you feel like you're only halfway through. Like it's a really strange, disjointed experience. And while the core gameplay is really fun, and I love Fire Emblem games, and I always have, it just drives me crazy.
So you played what is it, 160 hours, and you still don't like it?
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, so that is what we've been playing, but now let's go over what we could be playing. Here are your releases this week, courtesy of Nintendo.com, and there are a lot. So I'm going to try and go through these as quickly as possible. It's a huge, huge month. So we got the Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2 Enhanced Editions coming
Oh my God.
on the 15th.
Am I going to buy those for the 8th time in my life?
So I was excited about that. I was excited about these D&D games, but then Divinity Original Sin 2 kind of burnt me out on that style, so I think I'm going to pass for now. The Eyes of Ara, Planescape Torment, and Icewind Dale Enhanced Editions are also out on the same day, the 15th. The Ninja Saviors Return of the Warriors is out. Override Mech City Brawl Supercharged Mega Edition. That's the giant.
That's a great
mech
game.
fighting game. Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, I've watched a lot of Let's Plays and stuff. It looks like a blast. Billy Bomber, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Complete Edition is coming out. Overwatch Legendary Edition. Boo. Zombieland Double Tap Road Trip. So they made that. Then we got Little Town Hero.
Oh yeah, Game Freak.
Only $25, Andy.
Yeah, this game has no marketing. I don't know what Nintendo feels about this game, if they think it's going to be a hit or a miss, but I feel
this was definitely them just saying, go ahead, you can make it, but
Pokemon
make sure we
is
get Pokemon.
a month later, so don't worry about this little game that's coming out before that.
Yeah. Summer Sweetheart, which looks like one of them waifu dating games. Domiverse, Felix the Reaper, Stranded Sails, Explorers of the Cursed Islands. That actually looks some way interesting. Rabbi Ribby, or Rabby Ribby.
One of those waifu games as well.
Battle Planet Judgment Day, which we did get a couple of codes for, so when Andy and I play that in co-op, we'll let you know how that is. Sub-Level Zero Redux. Sega Ages Incident R.
No idea.
Is that what that says? That is what that says. Sega Ages Columns 2, A Voyage Through Time. The Jackbox Party Pack 6 is coming out. Sea Salt, Where the Bees Make Honey, Kine, Miniature, The Story Puzzle, Pig Eat Ball is coming as well. I heard good things about that. Continuing on, also on the 18th, Ring Fit Adventure.
We're getting that right?
I think I'm gonna get it
happen
because I'm a fatty and I need to lose some weight.
Yeah, you're on a health kick too, which is nice.
I am on. I had a.
You've lost what, 7 pounds now?
2 weeks, yeah.
Holy
2
shit!
weeks.
Look at you.
It's mostly water, but
don't matter. It's still.
We'll get to the fat soon.
Yeah.
Digimon Story Sliber Complete Edition, Zik Square, Safari Pinball, Mega Aquarium, Return of the Obra Dinn, which is
great game.
A fantastic game. Starblocks Inc., Ice Age Scrat's Nutty Adventure, Warbital, Raging. Oh no, we're gone. That's it. We're out. We're out. We went too far. We went one game too far. Well, Sneak Attack Raging Loop is coming out next week. All right. And that's your releases. I want to look at this Stranded Sails Explorers of Cursed Islands because it's probably... Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, it's one of those. Okay. All right. Yep. Exploring a little island. Little town builder, it looks like. Making food. Okay. Maybe it's good. Let us know, listeners, if you play it before we do. All right. That's the releases of the week, and now it's time to get into the lead story. Andy, take it away.
Yeah, so I was browsing through Reddit, and I came across a trailer for this game called My Beautiful Paper Smile, which still haunts me to this day. And I said to myself, we should get this game on the show. So I tried to track down anyone through Google searches. I was like, you know what? They have a Discord. And then, sure enough, I found Michael on Discord and on Facebook because I'm very persistent.
Yes, you're like a hemorrhoid.
Yes. No, I'm more like I'm like a herp. I always come back to bother you.
Well, yeah. Sure.
So we touch base and we set this up rather quickly, like in a half a day turnaround. And now Michael's on the show to tell us all about this great game that's gonna scare the shit out of us in 2020.
Now,
So
of course, this is our spooky month. We're trying to do
spooky.
scary games. Should we let our audience know? Because we did announce a guest for this week that wound up falling through, and we should probably tell you about that.
Well, we could save that for later. It's also in the
Okay.
pre-show.
Yes,
So if
it
you
is
want
on the
that
pre-show.
juicy tidbit, get
Right.
the pre-show action.
But we are still working on that.
Yeah.
So, yes, we're still working on that guest, the guest that you probably thought you were going to hear today. But that's okay. So they were. I actually. So yes, we are a Nintendo show, but as of right now, there are no plans for any sort of Switch release for my beautiful Paper Smile. As far as we know, looks like it's PC right now. But as we know, the Nintendo Switch got that tractor beam of hotness. You know what I mean? We got to just get everybody on this
You could always
console.
ask the man. He's right.
Well, I'm preparing him for when he says
He's right here on the show.
I know,
And
but
that's
if we
also a potential question to ask.
right, but that's what I'm getting into. So right now you only have PC announced, which we understand. You know, we get that. But have you explored other, I don't know,
Other
not console
platforms?
platforms? That's the word I'm looking for. See, you're smart. I like you.
Yeah. So we've had a lot of people ask about it for Nintendo and particularly Switch and Xbox and PS4. We haven't announced anything yet, but it just kind of depends. We're kind of waiting to see what happens with the PC launch, and if the demand is big enough, then obviously that will factor into our decision making.
Sweet. So it's on the table. All right, now. Before we get into anything other than this rigmarole, why don't you tell us what My Beautiful Paper Smile is for those who don't know?
Sure. So, My Beautiful Paper Smile is a psychological horror game that is very stylized in its art and audio design. It is if you've ever played games like Limbo or Inside or Little Nightmares, it's kind of similar in some respects to those games. There's a heavy focus on story. It's essentially set in a supernatural dystopian world where you play as one of the Joyous, which is one of the children that is locked away in a facility run by the authorities. And the authorities essentially force these children to wear masks with big grins, big creepy grins on the face. And the goal is, or seemingly is, to make sure that none of these children experience any kind of negative emotion or anything like that. They have to be perfect, and so they're put through daily tests and stuff like that to kind of weed them out. And then basically, if anything happens with the child, they mysteriously disappear. And so that's the premise coming into the game. And essentially, you play one of the children who you've decided enough's enough, and you want to escape the facility. And so that's the premise coming in.
Haunting.
Yeah, Little Nightmares, and we've had the developer of that game on the show as well. Little Nightmares is very unsettling, and a lot of it has to do with the art style, which is extremely important in an atmospheric game like this. So you guys nail it from the trailer. I can tell you that it's very, very unsettling. So we actually have a question from one of our listeners. This is from Missed Enough, aka Matt Murray. He's from our Discord. He wants to know how you guys arrived at that particular visual style.
Sure. So the game's actually, so we're publishing the game. The game's actually developed by a solo developer called Two Star Games, and they, when we got together, he had a very clear vision of how he wanted the art style to be. So he hand draws all of it. Everything in the game is hand drawn. It's developed in Unreal, and he hand draws everything. And he essentially was messing around with a couple of ideas for a while, and then one day he essentially just made a pencil doodle on a piece of paper, and it was actually one of the main characters of the game that he just doodled while he was bored, and then that basically became the premise of the game because it was so a little bit different, and we wanted to make something that stood out from, as soon as you look at like a screenshot or a video, you can see that it's very, very different. But we wanted to make sure that, the art style really also complemented other aspects of the game as well.
Was that tweet that I saw, and I don't know if it was from you guys or maybe from him, that it was like an actual sketch of the character and it was kind of like before and after?
Yeah.
Was that the original sketch that inspired the whole thing?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Wow, that's
Andy?
that's an Unreal. That's kind of, I didn't expect that. That kind of caught me off guard. Like, why would you choose that engine to develop this particular kind of game?
Well, I mean, with Unreal, there's a lot of stuff that we can do that's a little bit more challenging, because on the premise, it looks, because it's a 2.5D game, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would think it's simple to develop, but the great thing about Unreal is it gives you the flexibility to really add in things and put in certain mechanics that really help the game overall. So while you are in a 2.5D environment, it allows you to do things outside of that I think really add to the game.
Do you know if the premise was inspired by something, like maybe something, I don't know, maybe a work of fiction or maybe like something historical that, kind of this is like a twist on that kind of?
Yeah,
like a metaphor.
It wasn't inspired on it. So when coming up with the story of the game, they didn't want anything that was one of the biggest problems we saw in the horror genre in particular, was like everything was getting very samey. And you think of like Outlast, and then Outlast did really well and Amnesia did really well, and then everyone was copying those two. And so it was becoming very similar in terms of the the themes and the stories that were involved in all these horror games. And so we wanted to not really make sure that we weren't looking to any other piece of work, whether it be film, TV, literature, anything to really inspire us. So the story itself is actually primarily developed on the idea of what kind of emotions we want to invoke to the audience, and what kind of, and exploring emotions as a theme. And so we built it around that rather than looking at other things, because I think if you look at other things too much, while they may be good, I think you can fall into a trap of inadvertently applying what other people have done into your game, and I think that lessens the overall creative experience.
As a publisher, what was it that made you drawn to this game? Like, what was it like? Okay, this is why I want to work with this individual and get this game made.
Well, I mean, we loved it from. I loved it from the first time I saw it, because it just looked so unique, right? And then once I sat down and played it, and played the first chapter, I just couldn't let it go. It was just something that there's just a couple of games that just come along every once in a while that you just know are a little bit special, and they're trying to do something different. And I think that kind of mixture just deserves to be rewarded. So and then we met with 2-Star and got along great, and the relationships worked really well. We've got the same goals, we want the same things, and we want to be able to make the best game possible. So it was just a match made in heaven, as they say.
I love hearing stories like that. It gives you some faith back in the industry, that it's not all about just turning a profit. It's like you want.
Oh, I want to do that too, though.
Well, yeah, of course. You'll buy your yachts eventually.
It's easier to turn a profit when you have a passionate team that is passionate about a good project, because then that gets all of the people behind it. At least that's what I've found. Like, if you're kind of just putting stuff out there to make money, and you're just pumping, you're like a factory just pumping these things out, that's a little bit different than when you put your blood and sweat and tears into something, and you're going to the PAX Easts and the PAX Wests of the world, and you're pounding the pavement, showing people your game. Like that was one of the things about PAX East that I love so much, is like so many of the people in the indie mega booth were the people who physically code the game or draw the game, or wrote the game, or sometimes it's one dude that did all three. And you're talking to them, and you get that passion, you get that it just oozes from their pores and it gets you excited about the game. And that's really, I feel like, the difference between the indie scene now compared to, 2011 maybe, or like, oh, actually you could probably go further back, right? 2007 was like really when a couple of those games started to trickle out. But for all intents and purposes, we'll say 10 years. Today to 10 years ago, I feel like it's night and day. Like seeing the passion and seeing publishers recognize the passion. Like one of our publishers that makes our conversations all the time is Devolver, because they seem to pick up this game, and then they you could tell that they really believe that in that title, the way they treat it and the way they talk about it and the way they showcase it, and anytime that they do anything with it, really.
Yeah.
And it's great to see. You're seeing that across the indie kind of landscape this whole generation, especially since the Switch, really. But PS4 kind of put the focus on the indies a little bit, with a lot more oomph behind it this year. What are your thoughts on the current indie scene?
Yeah, I mean, for us, one of the reasons that we started, because Vicarious was a PR agency before it was a publisher, and we decided to go into publishing because one of the big problems that indie companies, small companies, even mid-sized companies are having is discoverability. And, they have a lack of finances. They have a lack of experience with marketing. They have, there's all these things that they're lacking. And you often find that, especially the indie devs, they'll go and use all their resources to produce a game. But then, that's only part of the puzzle when it comes to you actually have to get it in front of people to be successful. And so, that's a problem more than ever before. 10 years ago, that you could build it and they will come because you'd be on Steam, and you'd be on Steam with like 11 other people that month. Whereas now you have 25 games releasing a day. And so how do you compete and get attention against 25 other people that day? And that's become a really issue. That's a really big issue in the indie scene right now. And Steam and other stores have not helped that recently by changing their algorithms to promote, games that are selling well, or promoting high value AAA titles more over unreleased indies, so that they're really struggling to build followings on these stores. So we went into publishing with the idea that we can find these really great games and help them gain that discoverability, and really push them to the forefront of, this is a game you should play because it's unique and it's not similar to everything else that you've played this week. So I think that's a major issue that's facing indie developers right now. And outside of these developers going to PR agencies or publishers, there's not much recourse that they can do anymore outside of external social media work.
What is that process like on your end? Is it more of developers coming to you and pitching their title, or do you, at a convention or a show, you pass by and see, and you self-curate, let's work with this individual and this title? How does that work on your perspective?
It's a bit of both. Sometimes you get people emailing you saying, I've got this game, can you take a look? And sometimes there's other ones that just catch your eye and you're like, I really need to have a conversation with this person because this is great. For us, we don't, some developers have, if you look at Paradox Interactive, they have a very strict line on what kind of games they publish, right? In terms of, they publish strategy games. And others have a kind of theme around their publishing. We don't really have a theme, or at least we're not intending to. It's more about the quality of the game, and if it's fun, and if it's unique, and if it does something special. I think those are the games that we're looking for overall, rather than just singling on a single genre.
Well, speaking of quality, there is a beta for Perfect Paper Smile out. You can request. What's the response been like from gamers so far?
People really like it, yeah. One of the things about the game is that we don't handhold in the game at all. So that's something that we're trying to test out right now, because there's no tutorial in it. You literally get in the game and you play. And so some people are like, particularly on some of the areas where you're having to deal with some nasties. People are getting quite frustrated at like not understanding how to get rid of this monster who's attacking them. But we wanted to make the experience kind of, I never like games that just hold your hand the entire way through and it's just an exercise in pressing the button that they tell you to push at the right time. We want to make something that people have to really think about what to do. So it's an interesting experience. I mean, the feedback overall has been really, really positive. People really love it. They love the art style and they love the sound design, which is something I was a little bit nervous by, because what we've done with the sound is there's actually no music in the game at all.
Oh, great.
So
make it even more creepy.
Yeah, it's kind of like there is obviously like ambience and sound design within the game, but there's no music, because I think it was super important for us to really create this sense of you're in a facility and there's no one around and it's silent, and then you hear something and it's silent, and just really create that tense atmosphere the entire time.
So, can you go into a little bit of the actual moment-to-moment gameplay? Can you describe what a player would be doing in either a combat scenario or an exploration scenario?
Sure. So there's not really that much combat. I mean, there is no combat per se. I mean, there's moments within there that you have to do certain things that would
conflict.
Yeah, that would defeat an enemy, but it's not so much combat as you would think about it. But I mean, in terms of how it plays, I mean, you're going around exploring different. Trying to. I mean, it's in chapter 1. I mean, there's 4 chapters. There's going to be 4 chapters in the game. In chapter 1, you're trying to escape this facility. So as soon as essentially you've kind of started that journey, you're trying to do things like avoid cameras, avoid the authorities. There's enemies that you have to avoid. And make sure they don't catch you. There's a system where you're essentially got a torch that's called a life equipped, and if you unequip that for too long, the darkness will take you as well. If you're caught by the security cameras too much, the authorities will come and catch you. So there's stealth elements in there. There's exploration. There's multiple things to find. So we tried to, aside from telling the main story, we wanted to really fill out the game as well. So there's multiple things to find that unlock secret rooms, and then you have these, I would say, pivotal moments throughout the game that involve like running away from monsters, or like trying to get rid of a monster, solving a timed puzzle, and multiple different things like that. So it's kind of varied. I didn't want it to be a walking simulator.
Mm-hmm.
So, it does keep you engaged pretty much the entire time.
It's really like a clock tower. Like you have to evade enemies and sort of like solve puzzles and gather items, like an adventure kind of game in a sense. Not a point and click, but like that sort of same kind of mentality.
Yeah, it's got. I mean, it's a little bit. It's got a little bit of elements from multiple different stuff, and I think and one of the things. I mean, a perfect example of this is chapter 1 and chapter 2 are going to be very different in terms of the setting. So, for example, chapter 1 is inside the facility, so you're going to have to avoid security cameras, where security cameras are not likely to be a thing in chapter 2. So it's almost the environment changes, and that so too will the mechanics a little bit. It does have point and click elements to it, and it has limbo inside-esque elements to it. It has traditional horror elements to it, and so we've kind of mixed and mashed them up to create something that's hopefully fun for people.
It sounds like it's gonna scare the shit out of me. So you mentioned before how horror games have become very samey over the years, and I couldn't agree with you more. As a huge horror fan, it's hard to recall the last time a game really got under my skin. I would say maybe PT, and that was even a full-fledged game. It was a demo essentially.
Sure.
Just like that's what it was. So what do you think is lacking in the horror genre today? And what was the last game that really got to you? like spooked you
Yeah, I
genuinely?
mean, I think a lot of the horror games are great. I mean, the last Resident Evil was really good. I mean, it depends on, I suppose it depends on what type of horror game you're trying to make. I mean,
Correct. Yeah.
I'm not one for jump scares particularly. I think
Amen to that.
I think jump scare. I mean, I think one or two well timed ones where you don't see it coming is really well done. But I think for the longest time, many horror games in particular have relied on jump scares as the scare factor within the game, whereas I much prefer horror games to build atmosphere. I think the ones that build atmosphere and have you questioning what's around the corner at any moment, even when there's literally nothing around the corner, are the best games because they've completely captured your imagination at that point. And PT was really good at that, even just as a demo, right? Because you didn't know, you were always expecting something to happen, even when it didn't. And I loved, if you think about the best horror games over the last like 10 years, I mean, games like Dead Space, the original Dead Space before they turned it into like a ridiculous third-person shooter.
Right.
That had Dead Space, I think, was one of my all-time favorite horror games because the atmosphere that they created within that game just had you guessing what was in that panel, what's around that corner, what's going to happen next. And I think that that for me is a recipe of a really good horror game. I mean, jump scares and everything like that are all fine, and horror and gore is all fine. But I think if you can build an atmosphere to the point where you have the player constantly in a state of anxiety, that's the best game for me.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough games do that on a regular basis.
Yeah, Dead Space, they really played that game very well because you had like the visceral body horror of it, but then it had just that sense of dread always in the background. So you can have like the in-your-face gore
Yeah,
as long as you're mindful of the atmosphere, the tension, and again, just the great sound design to back it up.
yeah. I think I think things like jump scares and gore. I think they're tools, and they have to
Right.
be tools that improve upon something rather than be the thing that you rely on.
The crutch, essentially, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about the old Resident Evil games, I mean, one of the things that I like about 2.5D games, like what we're building, is fixed perspectives. I think fixed perspectives are a really great mechanic that are sorely underused in games today, especially in horror, because one of the great things about Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 was the fact that you had a fixed perspective and you literally could not see around the corner. You just didn't know what was there. And that I always thought that added a really good element of anxiety and dread to those games because you physically couldn't see around a corner, so you never knew what was there. And I think games like Little Nightmares and other games like Limbo and Inside and stuff, those fixed perspectives, I think, have always really helped those games build atmosphere and in the way that they present the game overall.
Yeah, this game's in good hands, I feel.
So how's the relationship between the publisher and a solo dev when staying on vision, or like what vision are you trying to stay on? Is there, you say that there are certain things that you look for in a horror game. Do you guys ever come in and say, hey, we don't think this works, or you kind of just leave it up to the creator to be the creative one, and you guys just try and be as supportive as you can? How does that work with especially with the solo dev?
Sure. So I mean, not all publishers are the same. I mean, for us, it's about supporting their vision rather than coming in and putting our own vision on it. So, for us, we wouldn't have taken the game if we didn't like Two Stars' vision of the game. But our job is just to try and help improve the game at any point and offer support where we can. I mean, I think there's a good give and take relationship. I mean, and developers often will get themselves into a bubble of they have a perspective on their game, and so we come in and try and help them offer others' perspectives where we're like, oh, we don't think that quite works there, just simply because of the way it plays. And so we just try and kind of help them fine tune it rather than we don't want to come in and gut and overhaul something, because otherwise, why did you take the game on in the first place? So it's more of, yeah, I mean, I think it's for us, it's about supporting them rather than them supporting our vision.
Gotcha. Andy, final question.
What scares you the most, Michael?
Oof, that's a tough one. I don't even know. I really don't like the ocean.
Oh, wow.
You know what though? Like
Yeah.
I'm there with you on that. There's two things in nature that really terrify me. One of them the ocean, and the other one is the vastness of space. Absolutely terrifies me.
Yeah.
Just trying to comprehend that, it's not a straight line, that it's literally a straight line in every single conceivable direction is seemingly infinite, and that freaks me out.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the ocean. Water in general is just, not supposed to be there. I'm good.
we got out of there for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not Jaws. This is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
When it comes to like horror movies and games, Andy, I mean, I think we've spoken about this before, but like the biggest thing that scares me or unsettles me the most is something that is possible. Like not usually like the fantastical, the crazy monsters, like that kind of, like Chucky, whatever, like that kind of thing.
Things that are based
doesn't
in
really bother me.
reality.
Things that they're not necessarily based in reality, but they tickle reality hard enough. Kind of like
Right.
the Halloween movies. To me, it's a person who, yeah, he's way stronger than a normal person is. Like he takes a lot of shit. And by the time you get a little further down the line, he's a little bit more ridiculous. But he's not like a super monster like Jason, Jason, I more don't like those movies because I'm just not really that big of a gore fan, really. And I feel like Halloween is a little less gore and a little more like
But
it's
Jason
the terrifying thing that's stalking you.
A murder
Right.
mystery that could possibly
exactly.
happen.
Right. That's exactly it. And those kinds of things unsettle me. Like I don't know. Kids that can kill people, that freaks me out a lot too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I'm not a massive horror movie fan, just simply because I like half of the stuff that happens in those movies is so unrealistic. Not from like what actually happens in terms of what the bad guys do, but in the fact that like you get a bunch of people and they're like, oh, let's go into that creepy house. I'd be going home. I'd be like, no, thank you.
Now let's all split up.
That would be the end of the movie
and
right
leave
there.
Our
like
phones here.
like where they go, you hear a noise outside, and then the guy goes to investigate. Like, I'll be like, no, I'm going to lock the door and I'm going to ring the police, and then I'm going to go lock my bathroom door and I'm staying in there. And that's that. Like, movie over.
You got to yell out who's there, and that's how you die.
I'm gonna challenge that notion. And it's only because I thought the same way for such a long time. And then I realized that to them, situations like that, just like to us, seem to only happen in movies. And they don't know they're in a movie. So, yeah, the stupid shit always happens in the movie. But if I heard a noise in my house, I have a family to protect, I'm going towards the noise. I'm going towards the noise, and I'm going there with a weapon. And I'm going there. Or I'm like, okay, that was clearly just a garbage can falling over, but I'm still going to go down there and check it out. I don't. But if I knew that horror movies happen in real life, like if somebody told me, oh, every horror movie that it doesn't, star like a monster or something like that, all of them are based on a true story, I'd be like, yeah, no, lock the doors, the whole family's going in every time the wind blows, I'm like, get everybody in the shelter.
We would all live in panic rooms, essentially.
Yeah, it would essentially be the Purge. Yeah. That's what real life would be. It'd be like, oh shit, they're coming, everybody in. Ow! Oh my God! Speaking of monsters, my cat. Ow! Again. All right. Sorry. All right.
Speaking of cats,
all right, so that's
a good segue.
Speaking of cats, Jesus Christmas. All right, so let's get into the Nintendo news report. By the way, do you have a release window right now? A target that you're trying to hit for My Beautiful Paper Smile?
Sure. It's going to be the first chapter is going to be in Q1 of 2020. So in the new year, and then we'll release the additional chapters on a fairly regular basis.
Excellent. All right, so now let's get into the Nintendo News Report, and our first story is perfect. Andy, take it away.
You know that great game we always talk about on the show, Cat Quest 2?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Coming to the Switch
Yes, it is.
later this month.
Yes, it is.
October 24th to be exact.
It's got its release date. Yep.
It's on Steam right now and Apple Arcade, but I've been staving off because I wanted it on the Switch. And I can't wait to get it on the Switch.
Very excited. Very excited.
Very excited.
So that's just a quick little. That's more of a story for our audience because we talk about that.
And for us because
so
we love that game.
Indeed. We got some Pokemon news. We got a region-specific Galarian form of Ponyta, which seems to be made out of cotton candy.
Right. Bubblegum.
Yeah.
This just came out of nowhere.
It's a fluffy little purple and green Ponyta. Ow! And it looks like
a My Little Pony.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially. It looks like a My Little Pony.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's also a psychic type, which is insane.
Right. And not fairy type.
No.
Right.
Its category
you know what you know what is fairy type, right?
It just says psychic here on Nintendo's website.
No, but do you know what is fairy type?
Isn't it like a Jigglypuff or Clefable, those ones?
No, the Galarian version of coughing and wheezing is fairy type.
Oh, get out of here.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
It's like poison fairy, and now we have a psychic fire. So now we have a fire Ponyta, an ice Ponyta, and a psychic Ponyta.
Yes. It can absorb life energy of the surrounding atmosphere and store it in its mane.
So like Goku?
Yeah.
Doing a spirit bomb?
It has an ability called Pastel Veil.
I like it.
That's just super intense. Too intense for me.
I like it. The Pastel Veil is a new ability in these titles. The ability prevents Pokemon and its allies from being poisoned.
Ooh.
It can even cure the poison status condition if its of its allies when this Pokemon enters the battlefield. So that's cool.
Doesn't seem very psychic though. Like, how is that?
It
how do you associate that
like,
with psychic?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
My Little Pony.
Who knows anything ever? We got some bubble trouble, Andy.
Bubble Bobble 4.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God! Is going to include the original game.
Yeah,
this is the best thing ever.
I like that.
This is great. So we get a brand new game, up to 4 players, co-op, and the original, the classic, as a mode.
It's exciting.
It is. See, that's how you do a proper sequel.
That's how you do it.
That's an incentive. I think even fans of the old game, I'll buy this new one and see if it's any good. If I don't like it, I'll play the old one. It's on the same goddamn cartridge. No big deal.
I'm inclined to agree with you with that. All right. What else we got here? Okay, so this one's a little weird.
This is a fun one.
Yeah.
This is a fun one.
Do you want me to do this one or you want to do this one?
You go ahead. I have a fun story now. After you.
So people don't know what the definition of plagiarism is. And there's a new 2D platformer shooter type game called Enchanted Portals. And it is very, 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 very much in the art style of Cuphead, which, of course, in itself is in the art style of 1930s and 40s cartoons, which I don't see how you can be plagiarizing the art style of a game that is copying something that happened 80 years ago. But whatever, I digress. 70 years ago, whatever, math is hard.
Yes, it is.
So, I mean, when you look at it in motion, they're doing like the same kind of shooting mechanic, using their fingers, kind of pointing and shooting or whatever. But like, I think this is a great thing that Cuphead inspired people to make essentially it's exactly what happened when Mario came out, and it's essentially exactly what happened when Mario 64 nailed everything. How many games came out and did those 3D platforming environments with jumping on things' heads and spin attacks and all that other crap. It's like, was that plagiarism? No, it's not plagiarism. So let's everybody get off our plagiarism horse and enjoy the fact that we're getting there are other artists in the world that can animate, hand draw and hand animate something like this to be this beautiful, and think about the different possibilities that can come of more and more people messing around with this kind of technology and this kind of particular art style or whatever. And probably, this is just my guess, the level design might actually make sense and the game might actually be good, but that could just be me.
Right. It does, it invites the comparison. Like when I was putting this doc together an hour before the show, because I'm so good about, being organized.
It was a hard week for us, Andy.
And
Okay.
professional. I was laying in bed with my fiance, and I was like, "Oh, here, check this trailer out." He's like, "Oh, wow, looks really neat. Cuphead, guys?" And I went, "No." And he just went, "Oh no," because he thinks, yeah, it's a ripoff, quote unquote. But again, even the developer cites that they were immensely inspired by Cuphead's developer, which is the sincerest form of flattery, imitation. But again, this is what happens when you have something that's mega popular and finds an audience. You can expect more of it. And this is what happens.
Yeah, especially when you're like a developer and you play something that you love and you're like, I want to do that and I want to make some changes because I didn't like this about it and I didn't like that.
Right.
So I'm going to do this and that. And then all of a sudden you get a better product, hopefully. Sometimes those things fall very, very flat, as we know from most of those 1995, 96, 97 3D platformers. But,
Right, and you would hope that if you're the one making this game, that given that people know that it looks and plays a lot like Cuphead, it has to be better or different in some way. Otherwise, you're making a clone. Which,
Michael, in case you didn't see it, I'm going to drop you this.
Yeah, no,
this
I saw it. I read it in today's news. I mean, it's one of those things where I don't. So, from our perspective as people who make games and promote games all the time, I think so. You can't own an art style, especially one that's been derived many, many times over many, many years. I think for me, the question becomes how similar is the game in terms of how it plays and in terms of the level design and character design and things like that. Because I think that's where you draw the line on plagiarism for me is this game basically copied with a little bit of a reskin? That's
right. Like if code is used, like if they go back and reverse engineer the game and copy code, or say, okay, this one, their first boss head was, this tall with this kind of attack, and
right,
whatever.
Like,
like, okay, let's change the color and call it a day.
If the mechanics are the exact, like, it's particularly in a game like this, right? You can't, like, the normal run and gun gameplay. That's not Cuphead's, right? That run and gun gunplay goes way back to.
And that's Contra, essentially.
Yeah, that's Contra, right?
Yeah.
That's NES days. You can't have a patent on that type of gameplay. But I think what's going to be interesting to look at, particularly the boss fights, right? Because those games are all about the boss fights and the mechanics of the boss fights. So if it comes to the point where you essentially have identical boss fights with a slight reskin, then I think you're going to run into some very, very shady areas where it's like, oh, you've basically reskinned that boss and it plays the exact same. And that for me is definitely copy. But if it's just if it's more of a, it's different mechanics for each boss, and there's no real massive crossover with each individual boss fight and the design of the characters and everything like that, then it's a fairly harmless nod for the most part.
Yeah, I have a game coming out too, guys. It's called Goblet Face.
So, it's good.
Yeah,
it's good. Goblet Face, I like it. Yeah. All right. So it's time to get into the hype zone, Michael. The hype zone is where we take clearly the most important news of the week, the very most important, the tippy top, the apex, as it were, of the news, and we make sure we give it its proper pedestal, and we really hit it home. And I don't know if you could sense my sarcasm, but it's there, and I'm laying it on pretty thick. Andy, why don't you take it away with our first hype zone, because I have a second.
Oh, this is intriguing. Well,
Indeed.
Fitting for Horror Month, we had a whole discussion with Michael here about what makes a great horror game and how he looks to deliver a very unique, horrifying experience in his upcoming title. But I really think, Michael, you should stop right now and just pack it up
Pack it up.
because
It's over.
the true horror geniuses are back.
Mm-hmm.
And they will deliver unto us the most psychologically breaking horror title to date. Konami has announced a brand new Silent Hill title.
Indeed.
Oh.
And it is going to be a patchy slot game.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, baby.
Debuting in Las Vegas.
Well, there you go. See, the game's over. I mean,
Yes.
there can be nothing worse than a Silent Hill game that also takes your money consistently.
Of course.
It took your fear, now it's taking your money. And then thus a double whammy of terrifying.
This is cutting edge, guys. All right.
You know what? If of all the things that I would think Silent Hill would be good at, like good for, like movie, nah, we saw that already. Didn't work. I think twice, right?
Right.
Pretty sure they did 2 of those. It was all right. Video games, clearly in the past. All a thing of the past. I think slot machines is where it's at.
But hear these stats. This is part of a new video slot cabinet that features a 49-inch 4K Ultra HD display. All right, and it will feature multiple Silent Hill themed slot games. Silent Hill Return, based on Silent Hill 3, and Silent Hill Escape, based on Silent Hill Downpour. So you're picking, arguably, one of the two worst games in the franchise to really.
Well, they need a redemption story, Andy.
Yeah. And it will leverage the series' thrilling scenes, sounds, and characters. So expect many nurses and merry pyramid-shaped head things stalking you throughout. So this is it. This is what real horror looks like. Goblin quarters endlessly until you have to mortgage your house to play again.
Andy, does the name Leroy Green mean anything to you?
I thought you were going to say Leroy Jenkins for a minute, but no, I don't know who Leroy Green is.
Leroy Green. Well, it should. Okay?
Okay.
Because Leroy Green does not only wrestle, but he plays his Nintendo Switch while he's wrestling.
Oh, I know what this is. Yeah.
And this is your hype zone of the week, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. He is a professional wrestler, I believe, here in Brooklyn. He's in the House of Glory, which is in Brooklyn, New York, my hometown, right where I am, not too far from me, a couple miles. And he is known as the hashtag King of Games. And he literally sits in the middle of the ring playing his Nintendo Switch. I'm guessing Smash Brothers. Just seems like the kind of game he'd be playing. And he is doing full-on flips and all this other shit while he's got a Nintendo Switch in his hands. And it is truly something that should be seen by everybody. Because professional wrestling, which I have done, I know I've mentioned this on the show before. I've had like 5 or 6 matches under my belt as a young person. And it is really hard to do with your hands. This kid is doing this not using his hands because he just holds his Nintendo Switch. And it is actually really amazing. And he is going to be a future world champion. Don't you worry about it. He's doing full-on drop kicks with the Switch in his hands. He's doing hurricanranas. He's doing the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm also pretty sure that House of Glory is a bathhouse in Chelsea.
Well, we don't need to know about that, okay? What you do in Chelsea is your responsibility. All right, that is the Hype Zone, and now it is time for the final segment of the show. It is the Retro Game Club. But first, let me tell you about our sponsor, and our sponsor is Melted Pins. Melted Pins is a fantastic, wonderfully illustrated art pieces here, folks. Fantastic art pieces. They're tattoo art inspired designs that are on pins and buttons and canvas bags and mugs, and I think there might have been a tank top recently. Artist Kelsey Lynn, she's done art for our podcast. She's actually working on a new design for a new show coming up in the next season, as it were. When we start talking about that a little bit more in depth, I'll let you know. Awesome designs. Been working with us for a little while now. We love her work so much that we started to do this little partnership. And it's pretty simple, folks. You go to meltedpins.com, And when you go to checkout, use your checkout code NDSmelted. That's NDSmelted to get 10% off of your total purchase. Excuse me. You can follow Melted Pins on all social media at Melted Pins. And again, that's meltedpins.com. Use the promo code NDSmelted to get 10% off your order. And I want to see, because I haven't checked, I want to see some of the new stuff up there. What do we got? Anything new? No, we're still in fall, so we do have a Wicked engraved necklace up there now. But yes, a lot of the stuff is seasonal. A lot of great stuff coming out very soon. Kelsey Lynn also designs all of the art for Dollar Slice podcast, which is great, and the Kinda NYC Kinda Funny fan group of New York City. She does all of that art as well. So if you want to check out other pieces, you could do that as well. But yeah, follow at Melted Pins, meltedpins.com, promo code NDSmelted. All right, so it's time for the Retro Game Club. Andy, I'm scared. Take it away.
All right. This.
Should we wait?
You
want
should
to explain the rules
first.
Yeah,
to,
we got to explain the rules.
Michael.
I figured you would do that, but you're an idiot.
I gotta have myself. I was too excited.
All right, Michael, this is how it works. You and I are working as a team. As a team, we only have 3 total guesses to try and guess this game. Andy's going to give us a clue, and then we could either guess or get the next clue. But the faster we get this thing, the more points I get. And right now, I am down 11 points. So the first clue is going to be worth 10 points, the second clue 9 points, and it goes down from there. If we want to ask a yes or no question, we can do so, but we forfeit one of our guesses. And when we say retro, we mean from the GameCube and back. And it's a game that not necessarily has to have been exclusive to Nintendo, but it has to have appeared on a Nintendo platform. Now, do you have any questions, Michael?
Nope.
All right. I'm leaning on you heavily because I'm terrible at this game.
I wouldn't.
Andy, take it away.
All right. This overhead run and gun title appeared exclusively on Nintendo consoles. All right.
Overhead. Let me think. Overhead. Okay.
Overhead run and gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at. Like,
I can't remember. Was Metal Gear on exclusively?
Well, that was on the MSX.
Oh, right.
The original.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm trying to think. I get a lot of my games mixed up with the side-scrolling ones. That's my problem here.
Yeah, because I always think
like
side-scrolling.
Sunset Riders, your Gunstar Heroes, and just a bunch of games like that. All right, you know what, Andy? Let's maybe the next clue will give us a little bit more as far as like the time that this thing came out, so we know where we're going. Let's get the next clue.
Okay. This game, which was released in the mid-90s, never made it to Japan.
Interesting.
Okay, that's weird, but go on.
Yeah, it is weird. It's very weird.
Shoes did the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it never made it to Japan.
You'd be surprised. There are a lot of games that did do that.
Which shock us on this segment time and time.
A lot of them had to do with like license stuff.
Yeah.
Like just licenses that weren't over there. Like I think all of like the Jeopardy and the Family Feud and like all of those games were all always in the Americas only and were exclusive to Nintendo. Well, they were the only game in town for a while. I kind of want to... I'm assuming America, but could this be No, this wouldn't be a European-only title, right? I don't think so.
Well, I'll give you that. It was released both here and in Europe. Or the PAL region.
Okay.
Just not in Japan.
So it was released in because I would have lived in Europe at the time, so I'd have lived in the UK. So I'm trying to think of games that I played on the SNES and stuff.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Probably all I can think of is side scrollers.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening in my head.
Next clue? How are you feeling,
Yes,
boys?
please. Yeah, we could do the next
Yeah,
one.
go on.
For 8 points.
This sequel added a run button, slide, and jump mechanics, which were not present in the predecessor.
Huh.
Interesting.
Oh, here's a bonus clue, and that was a huge detriment to the gameplay. It was like
Oh.
a if it's not broke, don't fix it scenario with this game.
I got you. Yeah.
Like it had a perfect formula, and then this kind of shat the bed because it tried to be different. It tried to up the ante, and it just didn't pan out for this game.
I feel like so this could be, I mean, mid 90s. That has SNES all over it.
Could be SNES, could be.
I know it could be 64 though. It could be.
I
Could be a lot of
I don't think
things.
it would.
And it's
Game Boy.
something that's had sequels.
Yep, and it was only on Nintendo systems, plural.
Systems. Interesting.
So it was on more than one Nintendo system.
Interesting. So it could be a handheld. It could be a Game Boy Super Nintendo situation, or it could be a Super Nintendo and then ported to 64. Although I don't think there were a lot of those.
Yeah.
But you know what? Nintendo games went as late as like 93, 94, so it could have been NES.
Also true.
Oh, man. Your clues suck.
Oh, well, maybe this next one will give you a leg up.
Was it I can't the only top down game that I even know, the only top down game I even know from that era was Dimension Force.
I don't know if I'm familiar with that one.
Expound. What was it called on? It might have been called something different in the US. Maybe it was D-Force in the US.
D-Force.
Because that was on the SNES, and that was like, but I don't think it had the that was a helicopter one.
Yes, you are correct.
Well, there's no sliding on that.
Well, it definitely would have been a detriment to the game.
That's true.
That's innovation. Our choppers can slide.
Could it be one of those Contra departures, like when they first went in that isometric mode? Which, like, I'm trying to think which one. Hard Corps? No, that was on Genesis though. Hard Corps.
And that was also standard Contra. Besides, Super C had overhead mechanics in some levels as well.
Yeah, but not all. Yeah, I get what you. Yeah.
All right, next clue.
Yeah, I guess. Yep.
All right, the plot of this game is a lot like Night at the Museum, but instead, it's about a horror exhibit which comes to life.
What the fuck is this game?
Yeah. That is, I can't even.
Horror exhibit come to life. What the hell?
It's not Gremlins, is it?
I'm just watching a D-Force video as you guys are trying to think about what game this is. Here's a long play of D-Force. Half an hour. God, that game was short. Do you paying full price for a game when we last half an hour? I'd be mad as shit.
The only thing I think of horror is like, Gremlins.
Like
something
Ghoul Patrol? Was that? I don't know what that was on though.
Yeah.
Wasn't that was that a sequel though? I don't even know.
I can't. Yeah. Well, shooters weren't really my thing back then.
No, Ghoul Patrol wasn't a direct sequel though. It was a.
It's definitely a run and gun.
Ghoul Patrol was, yeah. Ghoul Patrol was kind of like yeah, it was a spiritual sequel to Zombies Ate My Neighbors, which fits the whole overhead.
Are you reading a line from a Wikipedia entry or Google?
No, I know that because I did.
Like you read that off of something.
No. I did. Do you remember when we gave away a prize for the first time on our like Twitter or Instagram? I forget what it was.
Right.
And they had to do a retro game club where I was giving video clues.
Sure.
Those clues were because the game that I was doing was Zombies Ate My Neighbors, and that was when I learned about.
Oh yeah, that was a while ago.
Ghoul Patrol, whatever the fuck it was called, Ghoul Party. I don't know. Ghost Patrol. Ghoul Patrol. I think it was Ghoul Patrol. But I also know that Ghoul Patrol did not review well. It was not received well by people. It could be Ghoul Patrol. That's all I'm saying. I feel like that came out at the right time, but I don't remember it coming out on a different console. It would have been Super Nintendo, but I don't know if it would have been on anything else. Huh. Andy, I want to ask you a yes or no question.
Sure.
Is this in the family, as it were, of Zombies Ate My Neighbors?
It is. Next clue.
It can't be Ghoul Patrol. I think Ghoul Patrol's.
This
All right,
game
go ahead, next clue.
Is a sequel to Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
Oh, you fuck. All right.
Which stars Zeke.
There were two though. Yeah. Oh, shit. Was that the one? I don't know, because there was that other one that was really bad. There was a third one that was even worse a departure. I don't even know if it came out. Actually, I think it might have been canceled. It's got to be Ghoul Patrol. I'm gonna go Ghoul Patrol.
The answer is Ghoul Patrol.
Woohoo! You know, I want to play this game, but at the same time, I don't, because I'm afraid that it's gonna ruin things for me.
Released on the Virtual Console for the Wii.
Oh,
so that's what it came out on.
Oh, you see, you tried to tricksy me.
Yeah, that's what we do here on this segment. And yeah, it was a sequel. Had the same engine. Different team, though. So a third party used the license and made a sequel. Which is why it wasn't as great.
Yeah, Zombies Ate My Neighbors are special.
Which is why you don't change that formula. It's a classic formula. And it worked so well. And this game, it broke it in so many ways. It was way more colorful, way more detailed sprites, but the run mechanics, I remember the run button was also the shooting button. It was Y.
Oh, that's dumb.
You had to hold Y to run. You had to stop, and you would run faster the longer you held it down. But there was pitfalls all over the screen.
Oh my god, what's the point of that?
So many insta deaths, and the enemy spawn rate in this game was ridiculously atrocious. Like, they would spawn endlessly.
So the horror exhibit thing actually sparked a little bit of me going down that path, because I do remember, but it was like were they parodies? I don't remember. Were they like parodies of like actual horror icons, or was that? Yeah, I don't remember.
I think you're thinking of Ill Bleed. That's the horror parody. It's like a horror theme park, and each attraction is based off of a horror film trope. Yeah, and that was a Dreamcast game. That's one of the best horror games ever made of all time. Just saying.
Michael, have you ever played the Zombies games?
No.
Zombie Ate My Neighbors? They're Zombies Ate My Neighbors is good. It's real good. Is that on that's not on SNES, right? Online? No. The Switch Online?
You know what's funny? The Zombies was also on Genesis, but this game only Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Weird.
That is weird.
Yeah.
I wonder if the Genesis game is any good.
Never
played a lot of those games are like, it was hit or miss. Either they were on par with each other, or one was far superior to the other.
I always felt like the SNES to Genesis ports were a lot like PS4, Xbox One early days. The inferior version was on Xbox One.
Right. Or the PS3 days where PS3's sports games were like half the frame rate and half the resolution of the Xbox 360. That always pissed me off.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of the show. Michael, you helped me out here. You kept me confident. You gave me hope to move on.
The best.
I'm finally catching up. Finally, it's happening.
Yeah, you're at the single digits now.
I know. This is great. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you. We're very excited to hear more about my beautiful paper smile. So yeah, keep us posted.
You should play the beta, Steven. Put on our YouTube.
I think I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna.
I think you'd enjoy that.
Yeah. Or you would, but you're too stupid to actually record yourself playing anything.
I'm not stupid. I just don't want to do it. I'm just lazy.
No, you're stupid.
Listen, trying to get guests on the show is a very taxing process. You know this.
This is true.
All right?
This is true.
Okay.
Well, that's going to do for us. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to find anything Nintendo Dual Screens related, you can find everything on dualscreens.com. You could follow us on Twitter and Instagram at NDSPodcast. I am at Batchild27. Andy is at PantsGuy. And where can everybody find you, Michael?
You can find me on Twitter at it's at that video, that game PR guy, I think.
At that game PR guy. Excellent. You could also join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/NDSPodcast, or you could follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/dualscreensstreams, which I am getting back to it tomorrow Sunday, yes, tomorrow night, because I'm off on Monday. So I'm going to be back in there. We're going to have some fun. We're just going to play some games. We're going to have a good time. Thank you to our contributors, Zazu Pitts of Sound No Productions for our theme song. Thank you, Matt Murray of Games. Well, actually, he's kind of a contributing. He's just contributing to us now. I don't think he's on Game Stuff anymore. But thank you, Matt. We appreciate all of the Twitch art and stuff like that you do. You also designed our Dual Screens logo. Thank you, Dan Colonna of Dinosaur Machines and Hit Button Gaming, and twitch.tv/DanoMac for our Nintendo Dual Screens logo. And thank you, Andrew Douglas, for all of our podcast art, which you are doing phenomenally at. We got a ton of compliments on last week's show art. And we love you and keep doing it because you're awesome.
There's a fun one for this week.
Indeed. Very excited.
He's going to love it when he sees it on Monday.
I'm so excited.
It's creepy as fuck.
And remember, folks, you could check out pre and post or post-show audio of each and every episode by supporting us at patreon.com/NDSPodcast. And that's going to do it for us. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Michael. You are welcome here when we get closer to release. We would be more than thrilled to have you on to talk more about the game and more about other projects you have. If you have any other projects you want to talk about, just keep in touch with us. We would love to have you back.
Sounds good.
Awesome. That's it, folks. This has been... Oh, wait a minute. Andy, is there anything you want to tell the kids before we go?
Yeah, so Shocktober is going to continue into next week. I have 5 potential guests I have to sift through. So if we're feeling generous, we may do more than one episode per week. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see how things work out, but
we'll see.
I kind of want to. I'm a little ambitious right now. I'm excited. Overachiever status right now, but yeah, we'll make announcements on Twitter and Discord really soon. So look forward to that because it's a lot of folks that are waiting to come on the show, which makes us really happy.
Very happy.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, ladies and gentle folks. That's it. This has been Nintendo Dual Screens episode 120 for the week of October 14th, 2019. And as always, please be excellent to each other.